Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and welcome to my September reflections. Today we'll be taking a look at some of the decks that I have been working with throughout the month of September and some of the other projects that I have gotten myself into. So to start off with, one of the things that I did in September, which we will actually take a look at a little bit in closer detail when we get to my journal video, which is coming up next, is that I did a challenge, so a tarot challenge. And let me just see if I can pull this here for you, give you a little sneak peek. So little sneak peek, I did the Harvest Moon Tarot Challenge by Lion Hearts on Instagram. And I actually did, sneak peek of my journal. I did the whole month, and it was the first tarot challenge that I ever did and actually completed. So I was pretty excited about that one. The way that particular challenge was set up, the prompts were grouped in sets of 3. So I was able to do them as 3-card readings, which meant that I only had to do them every 3 days. And that was a bit more manageable for me than some of the other daily ones. I really don't have time to do daily journaling prompts on top of all the other daily card pulls, readings, journaling, crafts, and things, not to mention work and other things like that I do throughout a day. So having that whole challenge set up in those groups of 3 really made that easy for me to manage. And I am going to be doing the Lionheart Challenge in October as well. If the top of my head, I forget the name of that one, but I really liked the experience of it. And one of the things that I really liked about doing that challenge was that I chose to work with a deck that I hadn't worked with before. So the deck that I worked with for that challenge is the Tarot of the Hidden Realms, and I did actually work with it in terms of the book. So while I always read the guidebook. I should preface that. I always read the guidebook when I get a new deck. I don't always go back to the guidebook though, but for this particular challenge, I did end up using the guidebook and really taking time and sitting with the cards and reading in depth. And of course I made a bag for it because, that's what I do. And you guys have seen this deck, I'm sure, many, many times, but this is an absolutely gorgeous deck. I wasn't sure what I was going to think about the fact that it has a lot of people in it and they are very close up. I mean, look at that, but it's super powerful. These are fae, so they're not human, although they are very human looking. And so I think I was able to make a little bit of a better connection that way, because for the most part, I'm really not a fan of people in my decks. I'm coming around to the whole animal deck thing because I don't like people, and it's really kind of it's like you got to get one or the other, right? So I'm coming around to that, but this particular deck, I really enjoyed working with it. The imagery is absolutely just gorgeous. Look at this color palette. It's stunning. I really did enjoy reading the little stories about all of these fae in the book. So that was really great. There is within the book, I'm sure you guys have seen this a million times, so you have the card and a little story and then the divinatory meeting. And so I worked with that really closely and with these cards. This particular deck for me kept throwing 3 cards at me all month long. I got Justice multiple times. I did get the 10 of Wands multiple times as well. There's that Justice card. She came to visit me 3 to 4 times, I think, this month. And I also got the Star quite frequently. See if I can find that one quickly. You know how it is when you're looking for a particular card, you won't be able to find it. But in the meantime, look at these beautiful images. Oh, I got Temperance a time or 2, which that one, I really liked the description of Temperance in the book. It was very fitting for me. Got the 2 of Swords for sure, and I don't know where the Star is. Wait, there's the Star. So really cute little image for the Star. If it didn't have the title, the Star, on it, I would not think that that's the Star card. And for some of these images, that would be the case for me. Without the titles, I wouldn't necessarily know what they were. But it's a gorgeous deck. And I really enjoyed working with it. And especially in that really deep and meaningful and mindful way that I did, using the tarot challenge to really connect with this deck. So that was a really great experience that I was really excited to take part in, and I'm looking forward to doing the one next month. So every month I also choose one oracle deck that I work with, and I pull for a weekly message. So I do my daily messages as well, my daily tarot and oracle pulls, but then I also do my weekly card. And for my weekly cards for this month, for the month of September, I use the Shamanic Medicine Oracle cards, and this is one of my favorites. It's got that gorgeous matte cardstock, and the imagery is just absolutely phenomenal. Again, of course, very shamanic, very earthy, which I love. Love this card. And it's just one of those decks that that I tend to gravitate towards, particularly during the fall. I really like this deck during the fall. Here's the backs, and I have edged it in a brown. I believe I did this one with brown Crayola, nothing fancy, quick and easy. I have yet to edge my Hidden Realms. Need to edge that. I'm thinking probably gold, maybe copper. Not sure yet. Anyway, the other thing that I started doing this month, because I started last month in August, studying Lenormand. So I have decided that every month I will be picking one Lenormand deck to work with, to study, and to do weekly Lenormand readings, which we'll see in my journal. For this month, I chose the Celtic Lenormand. And this is, I'm sure you guys have seen this. This is such a fantastic little Lenormand. I love the images. I love that very Celtic pagan-y look to it. There is a couple of alternate cards, which I have in the bottom of the box here. And like if there's an alternate 18 for a cat. There are several bird cards. I think I chose... See, I don't even know my Lenormand well enough to look at the numbers. I am in the process of creating my own Lenormand, and that's mostly as a way to learn the cards, to learn the numbers. So here's the birds that I chose. There is a beautiful image of the owls in here, totally sidetracking. But it's this image right here, and look, that's a gorgeous, gorgeous bird card. But I didn't include it in the deck because I'm trying to really learn the Lenormand cards, and the birds are all about kind of, you know, that community, that gossipy, that sort of anxiety-driven type cards. And the owls, to me, just like, they look wise and all-knowing, and that to me didn't really fit the what I was reading about and learning about in terms of the bird cards. So I chose this one just because it's fit a little bit more of that imagery just while I'm learning, and at some point I may switch over to the owl card when I have a little bit better understanding. As lots of people have said, the imagery on a Lenormand deck really doesn't matter. You're just, a fish is a fish is a fish. And I think I've said this before, a moon is a moon is a moon. So it doesn't really matter what's on the card. But for me, coming from tarot and oracle into a system like Lenormand, I do pay attention to the imagery. So the imagery needs to be something that will spark that idea, that keyword in my mind of, this to me could be more of that gossipy community, anxiety, little anxiety, fluttery type of energy, whereas the owls to me are just more of that old wisdom, that deep knowing, that intuition. And to me, that in a Lenormand, again, I'm still learning, I'm no expert, but that in a Lenormand is more the moon card, which I can't find because, like I said, I'm still learning my numbers. There it is. Anyway, so totally rambling about that, but that is the 3 decks that I worked with all month long in terms of my tarot, my oracle, and my Lenormand. And that's a practice that I intend to use moving forward as well. I'll be doing the same thing in October and probably at least through the rest of this year, if not, beyond. So now let's talk about the decks that I used every week. So for the first week in September, the 2 decks that I worked with were the Tarot de St Croix and the Roots and Wings Oracle. Now, I did also work with the Tarot de St Croix for my autumn equinox reading, and I think for my moon readings as well. And this was a deck that this is really the first time I've ever used it. I studied it. I read the book. I actually recorded a really long walkthrough of this deck that was like, it was seriously like over an hour, you guys. And I'm in the process of trying to kind of whittle that down a little bit, trying to edit it into something that's a little bit more manageable, because I just like this deck. To me, it has some issues. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have some issues with some of the cards, but it's a deck that works really, really well in terms of how I read tarot. So I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent on my walkthrough. Hopefully when I get that maybe whittled down a little bit more watchable, then I'll go ahead and upload that. But I did also use it for my daily draws for the first week in September, and I used it with my beloved Roots and Wings, which you guys have seen this deck a million times on my channel because I absolutely love it. This is one of the cards. There's a couple cards in here where the creator makes mention of it being real people. And for me, that was a little bit of a disconnect, and that was kind of one of the little rants that I went on my walkthrough. So I won't talk about that here, but there are a couple of problematic cards in this deck for me. So it's not a perfect deck by any means, but the artwork is absolutely beautiful. And for the most part, I really love the way that it reads. So it worked really well with the Roots and Wings Oracle, I think, because again, like I've mentioned many times, we have this kind of, you know, more full, busier artwork, and then these simple, more understated, minimalistic images that just work really well together. I have thought about trimming this deck. It's still kind of on my maybe I want to list. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just, it was a beautiful pairing. I really, you know, I love my Roots and Wings. It works with all kinds of decks, and I have a real connection to this deck. I'm hoping that the creator will at some point create a tarot deck, because I think that would be absolutely beautiful. Look at this Ace of Pentacles with the worker. How perfect is that? So anyway, yeah, really enjoy working with these two decks. The Tarot de St Croix is a deck that it surprised me. I wasn't expecting to like this deck as much as I do. Like I said, there are a few problematic cards in there for me, but for the most part, it reads beautifully, and the guidebook is actually really good. Why is my Hermit upside down? Look at that Hermit, how beautiful that is. Love that. Anyway, so yeah, that's the Tarot de St Croix. And of course, you know, my beloved Roots and Wings here, which is just, you know, you guys have seen a million times because I talk about this deck all the time, I think. It has that rubbery cardstock. I will say that my cards are starting to get a little bit of a bow to them, which is fine. That doesn't really bother me. And they don't, like, they're kind of sticky because they're like rubbery, but you know, they work beautifully. There's the backs of both decks. Yeah. Absolutely love them. This one was definitely a surprise for me, and how much I actually did enjoy working with it. And of course, my Roots and Wings is just, you know, it's one of my favorite oracles that I can consistently work with it, and it works really well. So that is the Tarot de St Croix and the Roots and Wings Oracle. So for the second week in September, I worked with the Osho Zen Tarot and the Tao Oracle. So the Osho Zen was a deck that was sent to me by the lovely Barbara to check it out and see what I thought about it. You know, I did end up using the guidebook, but I only read the sections that were written by the deck's creator, which was... I do have it right here. So I only read the commentary section. This, I don't know if this is, you guys, I didn't do any research about this deck because I'm trying not to let all of the other things cloud my judgment on it, because this artwork is by, why is her name not even on here? I got rid of the box because Deva Padma is the author, I believe, of the book and of the artwork. So original illustrations by Deva Padma. Hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, I only read this commentary part. Quite honestly, as the week went on, that even got to be a little much and a little heavy for me. So I kind of skimmed this section a couple of times. I think this might be from some of Osho's work. I did pull out, there's a MasterCard that came with this deck. And I'm using it as a bookmark for my Tao of Pooh that I'm reading. I don't want to lose my space, but here's the MasterCard. I did pull this out, and I do intend to just toss this at some point. For right now, it's using as a bookmark for my Tao of Pooh that I'm reading, which I started reading while I was working with these decks. And because I just happened to have it on hand when I pulled out this deck. Anyway, so this deck for me, I found that it does not read like a tarot, like at all. I really didn't make any connection to the standard structure of tarot. I really do like the artwork for the most part. It's gorgeous. I was able to really make use of the keywords more than anything. And I haven't decided like what I'm going to do with it in terms of how I'm going to continue using it moving forward, because I do like the artwork. I think it's beautiful. And for the most part, the keywords worked really well for me, but it doesn't read like a tarot. So for this whole week, I felt like I was using an oracle with an oracle, which is a little bit different. Has beautiful backs. I really do like the backs. And this deck shuffles like a dream. I really enjoyed the way this deck shuffled. And this is by the same illustrator. This is the Tao Oracle, and this is just full of such gorgeous imagery. I found that with this one, again, I was only using the keywords, and I definitely used it just as an oracle. But like I said, having the Osho Zen Tarot, which to me kind of is just the Zen Tarot, is how I'm making the connection in my mind. But it kind of felt like using an oracle with an oracle, and that's not really how my weekly or my daily draws go. So that was a little bit of a shift for me. But they do look beautiful together. This deck has the most gorgeous cardstock. It's matte, but it's not too thick. It is a little big, so I had a little bit of trouble shuffling it. And I do kind of really want to trim it. Like, it's calling to me to be trimmed. But we have all of these symbols going on here on the sides, the I Ching, and then we have the sign up top, and we have all this, the text at the bottom. So I just don't know how I would trim it. But it's too big, and I don't know. It wants to be trimmed. I just haven't figured out how I'm going to trim it. But I did really enjoy, for the most part, the messages together. But again, like I said, this one ended up reading more like an oracle. And you can see that even though they are by the same artist, you can see there's definitely a different art style going on in these cards. This feels almost like, I don't want to say juvenile because it's not, but this is definitely more refined, more mature artwork, which I did, really enjoy. But they do look beautiful together. So here we have flowering with holding together. Just gorgeous. So I did really enjoy working with them together. But again, being that they both had a very oracle feel, I'm not sure that that's something that I would do again. I do definitely intend to use the Tao Oracle again because I did really enjoy working with it. And the images are just absolutely breathtaking. So yeah, that was an interesting experience for sure. Working with these two together. So that was the Osho Zen Tarot and the Tao Oracle. So for the third week of September, I worked with the Antique Anatomy Tarot and the Shamanic Healing Oracle cards. This deck came in a bigger box, which I don't have the space for, so I got rid of that, and I'm just keeping it temporarily in this bag until I can make a bag for it. It came with this absolutely beautiful guidebook, which I did a whole unboxing of this deck, so I will try to remember to link that in the description box below because I go into a lot more detail. One of the things that that people have asked is, will I be rebacking this deck? Because the cardstock is really thin. It's a lot of people have had issue with it, but I gotta tell you guys, I didn't have any trouble working with it. It's really, I really like the artwork. Absolutely love the artwork. Love the messages that I got. I did work with it with the book, which was really an interesting experience, and I really enjoyed that. But I gotta tell you guys, this deck shuffles. Like, let me just show you. I mean, not that I really want to try not to do a whole like review, but it does shuffle beautifully, and I really did appreciate that. I really don't like, I know I'm weird, but I really don't like those super thick decks like the Moonchild. That deck to me, it's too thick. I can't even hardly work with it. It's beautiful and I love it, but the cardstock drives me up the wall because it's so thick. It's a deck. I want to be able to shuffle it. It's cards. If I can't shuffle it, then that to me is a little bit of a turnoff. Okay, rant over. Anyway, absolutely beautiful deck. Really enjoyed working with it. I'm probably, like I said, probably not going to reback it because this cardstock, although it is super thin, is holding up really well. And I did work with it throughout the week. I did multiple other readings with it, and I just really didn't have a problem with it at all. So then I worked with it alongside the Shamanic Healing Oracle, which is one of my favorites. It is gold gilded, and amazingly enough, I haven't trimmed the gold gilding off because this particular gilding doesn't hurt, doesn't bother me as much. So anyway, this deck, these two pairings were really interesting together. The artwork, of course, is sort of has the same sort of minimalistic type vibe to it, which is really interesting. I mean, look at this. We have the Knight of Blades and feminine energy. That's interesting, right? Because we don't necessarily attribute our knights to feminine energy. But the conversation between these two decks, and I feel like I say this all the time, but the conversation between these two decks was really interesting. I got a lot of, this deck kind of provided like a really good bones for a message, and then the Shamanic Healing really expanded and opened that message, which is exactly what I'm looking for when I pair my tarot and oracle decks. And I am going to do a more detailed video on that at some point. It is on my list. But I really enjoyed the way that these two decks, you know, converse with each other. It wasn't even so much an aesthetic thing, because aesthetically, when we do have a little bit lighter cards and a little bit darker cards, and generally I like that. But aesthetically, I don't know that they really work that well together. I mean, there are so many other decks that I think would aesthetically would look beautiful alongside this, not to mention Claire Goodchild's other decks, her oracle decks, which I am going to get. But aesthetically speaking, I'm not so sure that they really go that well together, but the messages really worked really well together. Love this Magician. Think that's awesome. This Magician Sacred Space. How beautiful is that? I can't, you know, it's one of those things that I'm not even sure I can really explain it. It just really worked for me. It's definitely a pairing I would do again, although I have lots of other decks that I am so excited to try to pair with this deck. But again, just absolutely beautiful imagery on both sides. Very different, you know, art styles, but they work really well together in terms of the messages that they provide. So I did really enjoy working with these two together. So that's the Antique Anatomy Tarot and the Shamanic Healing Oracle cards. So the last two decks that I worked with in September, well, I guess that's not really true because it was 2 days in September, that Sunday and Monday, but I'm going to cover those in the October video because that week is primarily October. So for the last full week of September, the last two decks that I work with were the Silver Era Tarot and my new Inner Compass Oracle, which is a deck that I just absolutely adore, and I will gush over that one in here in a second. But the Silver Era Tarot is a deck that I've spoken about before, and it showed up in a video of my deck collections that I did of decks I wanted to love but didn't. So one of the things that I've been trying to do this year is pull out decks that are in my collection that I either haven't used or just not really sure that they're going to work for me, and to actually use them. Because sometimes I get a deck, I see it, I hold it, I look through it, and I go, yeah, I don't know about this anymore. Like, I changed my mind. but then I don't actually use it. So what I wanted to do was actually pull this deck out and use it, and yeah, it's just not working for me. I do like the, you know, the photo collage. I really like the black and white with the pops of color. I mean, aesthetically, it's just, you know, it's really pretty. But there's a lot of young people in it, and to me, you know, when your Queen of Cups, when she looks younger than me, that to me just, it's a disconnect, because to me, my queens and my kings should be older. They should be wiser. You know, these younger figures are better for your pages and your knights, you know, or even in your numbered, you know, your numbered minors. Like this King of Pentacles here, like he's too young. He doesn't even look like a king. He doesn't look like he knows anything. That was rude, sorry. Anyway, it's just full of a lot of young, pretty people, and that's just, yeah, it just doesn't work for me anymore. You know, that might have worked for me years ago, but it doesn't anymore. And the cardstock, which I mentioned in my other video that I featured this deck, the cardstock is ridiculous. It's super thick. It's like, look at that. That's super thick. It's really glossy. It's sticky. It doesn't shuffle hardly at all. It's just, yeah. Anyway, that aside, I really did want to try to work with it and see if it was going to connect with me, because, you know, once I started working with it, because I really do, I like that black and white with the pop of color. That really does appeal to me. I thought about maybe if I trim it, but, you know, I just don't think that it's one that's going to stay in my collection. This is the new Inner Compass Oracle, and I did an unboxing of this one, and this one is, yeah, will probably forever be in my collection because I adore this little deck. There's just nothing about this little deck that I don't like. So anyway, working with these two decks together was interesting, because I have this, from a tactile standpoint, you know, I have this deck it's bulky, it's hard for me to work with, I don't like the cardstock, and then I have this cute little deck that's like has just a perfect little cardstock for me. So that was interesting from a tactile experience. I do have to say that for the most part, like the messages between the two were pretty good. So here we have Temperance and we have Rest. You know, I can totally work with that. You know, Death and Gratitude. I do like this Death card. I think what's sitting on top is I went through and picked out a couple of the cards that I do actually really like in this deck, and there were only a handful. And to me, that tells me that this is just really not a deck that's going to work out for me. But it was an interesting combination. I'm not really sure what else to say with it. It just doesn't work for me. This, however, works for me beautifully, and I really enjoyed that. And the Inner Compass Oracle is a deck that I will be using again and again, I'm sure. It was an interesting experience. This is interesting, the Hierophant and Cosmic Order. So you see what I'm saying? Like the images or the messages between the two decks was really interesting, but I just not connecting with this one at all. So it's one that I think that probably needs to find itself a new home, and hopefully will connect better with somebody else. The Inner Compass Oracle is, you know, now in my top favorite oracles. It's right up there with my Roots and Wings now. So, and you guys know how I feel about my Roots and Wings. So it's definitely one that I am really enjoying. So that was the Silver Era Tarot and the Inner Compass Oracle. Okay, so real quick, let's talk about books. Most of the books that I read in September was my fiction books. I'm still reading The Signature of All Things, and I'm still reading The Mist of Avalon. That one's just, you know, kind of here or there. I am still working through the complete Lenormand handbook. I'm absolutely loving this book. That's one that I plan on studying Lenormand throughout the rest of the year. So this is not something that I'm planning on doing like, you know, in a month. It's a process that I really want to dive deep into and get to know really well and work with multiple decks. I did mention that, and if you're on my Facebook group, you might have seen that I am actually creating my own Lenormand, and that was mostly as a study process. But I will show you guys that here in another video in case you want to take a look at that. So that's something that I anticipate will be making an appearance over the next few months, because I do plan on doing my complete Lenormand studies throughout the rest of this year, and this has been my guide, my roadmap, my rock for that process. The 2 books that I bought in September, I actually haven't started yet, because they are books that I actually bought for October. So I did buy the Tarot for Troubled Times. Again, I haven't started on this, but this is a book that I am really looking forward to diving into throughout October. At least I plan on starting it in October. It has all these wonderful, prompts and questions and, candle magic, ritual magic. There's just so much goodness in here. So many different activities that I'm really excited to start this one, but I wanted to wait until I had some dedicated time for it. So this is going to be on my list for October, along with, I've been trying to collect, this is Llewellyn's, their little Sabbath essentials. They have one for all of them, all the 8 Sabbaths. So I've been trying to collect these, and this is the one that I got for Samhain that I hope to be able to peruse through during that season, during the month of October. Just, to just get a little bit better understanding of the Sabbath, of the season. And then of course it has, rituals and prayers and things of that nature to dive into throughout the month. So I really am excited to work on that one. And then I did just get in, which you might have seen in my spiritual goodies box. I got the You Are Goddess book, and this is another one that I'm really excited to dive into, and I did talk about this one a bit more in that video. So those are kind of the books that the one that I am still working with, and the books that I plan on working with. So let's talk a little bit about what I have coming up in October. I did make also a bunch of bags, and I am still trying to get my shop up and going. My shop for my physical things. My digital shop is still is up and running, and all of that on my website at bohotarot.com. You can buy all my guides and things of that nature. But I am working on creating the space for the physical products. So for my bags, my junk journals, things like that. That's still in the works. I promise it's coming soon. I promise. Moving into October, as far as my videos. So in October, I have a selection. I did a video of my darker decks for darker days. So it's just kind of a collection of some of the decks that I tend to use through the month of October, because they sort of have that Samhain energy to them, or that Halloween vibe. I have an anti-haul VR to Supportive Tarot with Lisa that I was super excited about, and it took me months to get together. So that's one that I've really been wanting to do. So I'm really excited to have that available for you here shortly. I also have a look at the new Literary Witches. So I didn't do like a typical walkthrough, because I don't seem to do anything typical, but we'll be taking a look at the Literary Witches book, the full book that I actually can't show you because I did something to it, and that's in another video. So I have the Literary Witches book that we'll be taking a look at in conjunction with the new deck that just came out not too long ago. I also did a mod on the Literary Witches Oracle deck, and we'll see that in another video. I have a couple of unboxings coming up for you, and a couple of other mods, and I did also work on some of the cards for my Tattered Timeless Oracle that I'm creating. So yeah, lots of good stuff coming up in October. I am trying to get a whole new series together for the end of this year, beginning of next, on actually how I read tarot, because a lot of people have asked for that. So I am trying to get that together for you guys. So I think that's it for me for what happened in September. I mean, I guess I didn't really tell you guys what happened in September. Not much. There's a lot of birthdays, a lot of travel. I kind of got sick from some of the travel, so I had a couple of days or a good week or so that I was down. But, you know, I'm bouncing back now and moving into October. Hopefully lots of good energies for that. I'm totally rambling, so I'm going to wrap this video up. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.